The rain came down in sheets, blurring the Manhattan skyline into a watercolor smear of lights and shadows. I stood under the awning of a corner deli, clutching my sketchbook, watching him cross the street. Elliot. My Elliot, who no longer knew my name. 5 years of love. And now his eyes passed over me like I was a stranger, his hand entwined with another man's. My name is Caleb Morrow, 25, a graphic designer with dreams bigger than my Brooklyn apartment. Elliot Kane, 27, was the architect who built my world until a car accident stole his memories and left me a ghost in his life. We met in a crowded East Village cafe, where he spilled coffee on my sketchbook and apologized with a smile that felt like sunlight. That was the beginning, late nights sketching together, his blueprints beside my illustrations, our hands brushing over shared dreams. For 5 years, we were inseparable until the night a drunk driver sent his car spinning off the FDR Drive. When Elliot woke in the hospital, he didn't know me. Retrograde amnesia, the doctors said. His memories of user first kiss in Central Park, our fights over takeout orders, our whispered plans for a future were gone. Worse, he fell in love with someone new, Julian, a nurse who cared for him during recovery. Julian, with his easy charm and kind eyes, became the man Elliot chose, while I was left piecing together the shards of a love he couldn't recall. Tonight, I'd followed them, not out of malice, but because I needed to see if any part of him remembered. The rain soaked my sneakers as I watched them duck into a jazz club, Julian's arm around Elliot's waist. My heart ached, but I couldn't look away. I wasn't always this desperate. Growing up in a small Ohio town, I learned early that being gay meant hiding parts of myself. My parents called it a phase. My high school called it a sin. I fled to New York at 18. Chasing freedom and art. Meeting Elliot felt like fatigue was everything I wasn't: confident, structured, grounded. He designed buildings that touched the sky, while I drew stories that lived on paper. Together, we were balance. Our first year was electric. We'd spend weekends exploring the city, from Coney Island's creaky boardwalk to MoMA's quiet galleries. Elliot would sketch skyscrapers, his pencil flying across the page, while I'd draw him, capturing the way his brow furrowed when he concentrated. At night, we'd collapse into our tiny apartment, laughing over cheap wine and bad movies. He'd tease me about my obsession with sci-fi novels, and I'd mock his love for minimalist furniture. It was perfect until it wasn't. The accident happened on a Tuesday. I was at home, working on a freelance project, when the call came. Elliot Kane. Car accident. Bellevue Hospital. I ran through the city, my heart pounding louder than the sirens. When I arrived, he was conscious but confused, his blue eyes searching mine without recognition. "Who are you?" he asked, and those 3 words broke me. The weeks that followed were a blur of hospital visits and explanations. I showed him photos, our old texts, the sketchbook filled with drawings of us. Nothing worked. His family, who'd never fully accepted our relationship, hovered protectively, whispering that I was upsetting him. Then Julian appeared, 25, with a warm smile and a knack for making Elliot laugh. I hated him, not because he was cruel, but because he was everything I couldn't be, new, untainted by the past Elliot couldn't remember. Now, standing in the rain, I wondered if I'd lost him forever. My phone buzzed a text from my best friend. "Mia, Caleb, stop torturing yourself. Come home." But I couldn't. Not yet. I slipped into the jazz club, the music wrapping around me like a warm blanket. Elliot and Julian sat near the stage, their heads close, laughing. My chest tightened, but I stayed, hidden in the shadows, watching the man I loved live a life without me. I knew I should let go. Everyone said so, Mia. My therapist, even my own conscience. But love doesn't vanish because someone forgets it. I'd spent 5 years building a life with Elliot, and I wasn't ready to walk away. Maybe I was a fool, but I believed there was still a spark of us buried in him, waiting to be found. As the saxophone wailed, I opened my sketchbook, my fingers trembling. I began to draw not Elliot as he was now, but as he'd been, laughing, his hair mussed from sleep, his eyes full of love. If I couldn't have him, I'd keep him alive on these pages. But deep down, I knew this wasn't enough. I needed to fight for Heimer or find a way to let him go. The jazz club's dim lights cast long shadows, and I sat at the bar, my sketchbook open but untouched. Elliot's laugh cut through the music, sharp and familiar, like a song I'd forgotten the words to. Julian leaned closer, whispering something that made Elliot's eyes crinkle, and I gripped my pencil so hard it snapped. I shouldn't have come. Mia was right, this was torture. But walking away felt like betraying everything we'd built. I ordered a whiskey, hoping it would dull the ache, but it only sharpened my memories. The first time Elliot kissed me, it was impulsive, in the middle of a crowded subway platform. He'd grabbed my hand, pulled me close, and said, I couldn't wait another second. That was Elliot, decisive, fearless, the architect of moments that changed everything. Now, he was building a life with Julian. I'd learned about him through snippets. He was a nurse at Bellevue, 25, with a soft southern accent and a knack for calming patients. He'd been there when Elliot woke up, confused and scared. And somehow, in those vulnerable moments, they'd connected. I couldn't hate Julian for that. But God, I wanted to. I flipped to a blank page in my sketchbook, trying to distract myself. The club was alive with sound-clinking glasses, murmured conversations, the low hum of a bass line. I sketched the scene, letting the lines flow, the curve of the bar, the blur of dancing couples, Elliot's silhouette in the corner. Drawing was my anchor, the one thing that kept me from falling apart. Caleb. A voice jolted me. It was Mia, my best friend since art school, her dark curls framing a worried frown. She slid onto the stool beside me, her eyes scanning the club until they landed on Elliot and Julian. Oh, honey, she said softly, her hand on my arm. Why are you doing this to yourself? I needed to see him, I muttered, staring at my sketch. I thought, maybe if I saw him happy, I could move on. Mia sighed, her voice gentle but firm. He's not your Elliot anymore. You can't keep chasing a ghost. Her words stung because they were true. But letting go felt like erasing the best 5 years of my life. I told her about the accident, how I'd sat by Elliot's hospital bed, reading him our old texts, hoping something would spark. I'd shown him the sketchbook, filled with drawings of our life together, our first apartment, our trip to the Adirondacks, the way he looked when he proposed to me under the Brooklyn Bridge. He'd listened politely, but his eyes were blank, like he was hearing someone else's story. Maybe you need to tell him the truth, Mia said. Not just show him pictures, but make him feel it. Fight for him, Caleb. Fight how? I asked, my voice cracking. He's in love with someone else. Then show him who you are, she said. Remind him why he fell for you. Her words lit something in May, a flicker of hope, or maybe defiance. I paid for my drink and left the club, the rain colder now, biting at my skin. Back in my apartment, I pulled out every relic of our life, photos, ticket stubs, a scarf Elliot left behind. I spread them across the floor, a map of our past. If I was going to fight, I needed a plan. The next morning, I went to Elliot's architecture firm. He worked at a sleek office in Midtown, designing eco-friendly buildings that won awards. I hadn't been there since the accident. His colleagues had been kind but distant, unsure how to handle me. I waited outside, my heart pounding, until I saw him step out for lunch, his blonde hair catching the sunlight, Elliot, I called, my voice steadier than I felt. He turned, his brow furrowing. Do I know you? He asked, and the question hit like a punch. I'm Caleb, I said, stepping closer. We were friends. Can we talk? He hesitated, glancing at his watch. I've got a meeting soon. But, sure. 5 minutes. We sat on a bench in a nearby park, the city buzzing around us. I didn't have a script, so I just talked about the cafe where we met, the way he'd sketch buildings while I drew him, the nights we'd stayed up planning a future. His face stayed neutral, but his eyes flickered, like he was trying to grasp something just out of reach. I don't remember any of this, he said finally, his voice soft. But you seem familiar. That word familiar was enough to keep me going. I didn't push too hard. I just asked if I could see him again. He nodded, cautious but curious, and gave me his number. As he walked away, I felt a spark of hope, fragile but real. Maybe Mia was right. Maybe I could remind him who we were. The park bench was still warm from where Elliot had sat, and I clutched my phone, his number glowing on the screen like a lifeline. Familiar. He'd called me familiar. It wasn't much, but it was enough to make me believe I could reach him. Over the next week, I texted him carefully small, deliberate messages. Nothing heavy. A photo of the East Village Cafe where we met. Captioned, "Remember this place." A sketch I'd drawn of him years ago, his smile soft and unguarded. He responded sporadically, polite but guarded, like he was humoring me. Looks nice, he'd write, or cool drawing. Each reply was a brick in the wall I was trying to rebuild. Mia helped me strategize. We sat in my apartment, surrounded by takeout containers and my scattered sketches. You need to recreate moments, she said, sipping her coffee. Take him somewhere that meant something to you both. Let his heart remember what his mind can't. I chose Central Park, where we'd had our first kiss. I texted Elliot, asking if he'd meet me for a walk. To my surprise, he agreed. Saturday morning, I waited by the Bethesda fountain, my stomach in knots. He arrived in a navy jacket, his hands in his pockets, looking like the Elliot I knew but also like a stranger. Thanks for coming, I said, my voice shaky. I thought we could walk. This place, it was special to us. He nodded, his eyes scanning the fountain, the families, the joggers. It's nice here, he said, non-committal. We walked along the paths, the autumn leaves crunching underfoot. I told him about the day we kissed here, how he'd been nervous, how we'd laughed afterward because a tourist had applauded. He listened, his face unreadable, but he didn't pull away. Do you ever feel like something's missing? I asked, stopping by the lake. Like there's a piece of you that's just gone. He frowned, his gaze distant. Sometimes. The doctors said my memory might never come back. It's like I'm living someone else's life. I wanted to grab his hand, to tell him that life was ours, but I held back. Instead, I pulled out my sketchbook and showed him a drawing of us here, by the lake, our silhouettes against the water. This was us, I said. We were happy. He studied the drawing, his fingers tracing the lines. You're really talented, he said, and for a moment, his voice softened, like he saw me. We kept walking, and I told him more small stories. Nothing too heavy. The time we got lost in the park and ended up at a street performers show. The picnic where we got caught in a downpour. He didn't remember, but he laughed, and that sound was a lifeline. As we parted ways, he said, "This was nice. Caleb, maybe we can do it again." My heart soared, but then he added, "Julian's been asking about you. He thinks it's good I'm reconnecting with old friends." The word friend stung, and Julian's name was a knife. I forced a smile. Yeah, maybe. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying his laugh, the way his eyes lingered on my sketch. But Julian's shadow loomed large. I knew I was walking a tightrope, one wrong move, and I'd lose Elliot for good. The next day, I went to the hospital where Julian worked. I don't know what I expected, maybe to confront him, maybe to understand him. I found him in the cafeteria, his scrubs wrinkled, his face tired but kind. I introduced myself, and he smiled. No trace of jealousy or malice. Elliot talks about you, Julian said, stirring his coffee. He says you're helping him piece things together. That's good for him. I wanted to hate him, but his sincerity disarmed me. I'm not trying to take him from you. I lied. I just want him to remember who he was. Julian nodded, his eyes searching mine. He's happy now, Caleb. But if you're part of his past, you're part of who he is. I'm okay with that. His words were generous, but they burned. I left the hospital feeling more lost than ever. Julian wasn't the enemy, I was just a man who loved Elliot, maybe as much as I did. But I wasn't ready to give up. I went home and started planning our next meeting, determined to make Elliot feel our past, even if he couldn't remember it. The Brooklyn Bridge stretched before me, its cables glowing under the evening sky. I'd asked Elliot to meet me here, the place where he'd proposed 2 years ago. My heart pounded as I waited, clutching a small box with the ring he'd given me, a simple silver band, now tucked away like a relic of a life we'd lost. He arrived, his breath visible in the chilly air, his eyes curious but cautious. This place feels big, he said, looking out at the city skyline. Why here? I took a deep breath. You proposed to me here, right on this spot. I pointed to the wooden planks beneath our feet. You were nervous, kept fidgeting with your jacket. Then you got down on one knee and said you wanted to build a life with me. Elliot's face softened, but he didn't speak. I pulled out the ring, holding it up in the fading light. This was yours. You gave it to me. He took it, turning it over in his hands. I don't remember, he said, his voice low. But I feel something, like an echo. That echo was all I needed. I told him about that night, how the city had felt alive, how we'd celebrated with cheap champagne at a dive bar. I didn't push, just let the story settle. We walked across the bridge, the wind tugging at our coats, and I felt a flicker of the old us, like a pulse coming back to life. But then he mentioned Julian. He's been great through all this, Elliot said. He's patient, you know. Doesn't push me to be someone I'm not. I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. That's good, I managed. You deserve that. We parted ways, and I went home, the ring back in its box. Mia was waiting, her eyes full of questions. How'd it go? She asked. He felt something, I said, sinking onto the couch. But he's still with Julian. Then keep going, she said. You're getting through to him. I wasn't so sure. The next day, I threw myself into work, designing a poster for a local art show. But my mind kept drifting to Elliot's laugh, his hands, the way he used to look at me. I decided to invite him to the art show, hoping a new setting might spark something. The gallery was small, tucked away in Williamsburg, filled with vibrant paintings and chattering artists. Elliot showed up, looking out of place in his crisp architect's blazer. I guided him through the exhibit, pointing out pieces that reminded me of us, bold colors, tangled lines, stories of love and loss. You always loved art, he said, studying a painting of 2 figures embracing. I can see why. I smiled, my heart racing. You used to say my sketches were better than your blueprints. He laughed, and for a moment, it was just us. No Julian, no accident, But then his phone buzzed a text from Julian, asking when he'd be home. The spell broke, and I felt the distance creep back in. As we left the gallery, Elliot turned to me. Caleb, I like spending time with you. But I need to be honest, I am with Julian. I don't know if I can be who you want me to be. His words hit like a wave, but I kept my voice steady. I'm not asking you to be anyone else. Just keep an open mind. Can you do that? He nodded, and we said goodbye. I walked home alone, the city lights blurring through tears. I was losing him, and I didn't know how to stop it. But giving up wasn't an option, not yet. I went back to my apartment and started sketching, pouring my heart into every line, determined to keep fighting for the man I loved. The sketchbook was my lifeline now, pages filled with memories of Elliot, his smile, his hands, our life. I'd started leaving sketches for him, small gifts to jog his memory. A drawing of our old apartment slipped under his office door. A sketch of Coney Island mailed to his apartment. Each one was a piece of me, a plea for him to remember. He texted me after the third sketch, a drawing of us dancing in our kitchen. These are incredible. Caleb, how do you do this? I read the message 100 times, searching for a hint of the old Elliot. I replied, just trying to show you who we were. We met again, this time at a diner we used to haunt. The neon sign buzzed outside, and the smell of coffee and grease felt like home. Elliot slid into the booth across from me, his eyes brighter than before. I've been thinking about you, he said. Your sketches, they make me feel something. Like I'm close to remembering. My heart leapt, but I kept my cool. That's all I want, I said. For you to feel it. We talked for hours, the diner emptying around us. I told him about the little things, how he'd hum off key while cooking, how he'd steal my pencils to sketch buildings. He listened, his eyes searching mine, and for the first time, I felt like I was reaching him. But then Julian called, and Elliot's face changed soft. Guilty. I should go, he said. Julian's waiting. I nodded, hiding my hurt. Can I see you again? Yeah, he said, hesitating. I'd like that. The next week was a blur of hope and doubt. I kept leaving sketches, each one more personal. A drawing of our first date. A sketch of the ring he'd given me. His texts grew warmer, more frequent, but Julian was always there, a shadow I couldn't escape. One night, I got a call from Elliot's sister, Claire. She'd never liked me much, thought I was too artsy for her practical brother. Caleb, you need to stop, she said, her voice sharp. Elliot's confused. You're making things harder for him. I'm trying to help him remember, I said, my voice shaking. He's happy with Julian, she snapped. Let him move on. I hung up, my hands trembling. Was I selfish for fighting? Was I hurting him? I went to Mia, pouring out my doubts. She hugged me, her voice fierce. You're not wrong to love him, Caleb. But you need to be honest with yourself. What if he never remembers? Her words haunted me. I spent the night staring at my sketches, wondering if I was clinging to a dream. But then Elliot texted, "Can we meet tomorrow? I need to talk." We met at a quiet coffee shop in the village. He looked tired, his eyes shadowed. "Your sketches," he said. "They're messing with my head. I keep dreaming about you places, moments, things I don't remember but feel so real." "That's us," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "That's our life." He leaned forward, his hands clasped. "I'm with Julian. Caleb. I care about him. But you're in my head, and I don't know what to do." For the first time, I saw him torn, caught between two lives. I wanted to beg him to choose me, but I didn't. Instead, I said, "Take your time. I'll be here. As he left, I felt a strange calm. I was getting through to him, but the cost was tearing us both apart. I went home and drew, my pencil moving faster, capturing every moment we'd shared. If this was all I'd have, I'd make it enough. Elliot's dreams were my victory, but they came at a price. His texts grew erratic, sometimes warm, sometimes distant, like he was wrestling with ghosts. I kept sending sketches, each one a love letter, but I could feel the weight of Julian's presence, steady and unshakable. One evening, I found a note slipped under my door. Elliot's handwriting, neat and precise. Meet me at the High Line. 7 p.m. My heart raced. The High Line was our place, where we'd walked hand in hand, dreaming of the future. I arrived early, the city sprawling below, lights twinkling like stars. Elliot was already there, leaning against the railing, his face tense. "Caleb," he said, turning to me, "I need to understand this. Us." I took a deep breath and told him everything: our first date, our fights, our love. I showed him a sketch of us on the High Line, laughing under a sunset. He stared at it, his fingers trembling. "I don't remember this," he said, "but I feel it, like it's part of me." "Then hold on to that," I said. "Let it guide you." He looked at me, his eyes raw. "I'm hurting Julian. He knows I'm struggling, and it's not fair to him." Guilt twisted in my chest. I didn't want to hurt Julian, but I couldn't let Elliot go. "What do you want?" I asked. "I don't know," he admitted, "but I need time." We walked the High Line, the city humming below. For a moment, it felt like old times, but the weight of his words lingered. He was torn, and I was the reason. The next day, I got a call from Julian. His voice was calm but strained. "Caleb, can we talk? In person?" We met at a park near his hospital. He looked exhausted, his eyes red-rimmed. "Elliot's a mess," he said. "Your sketches, your story's theory pulling him apart. I know you love him, but this isn't fair." "I'm not trying to hurt him," I said, my voice breaking. "I just want him to remember." "I get that," Julian said. "But he's with me now. He chose me." His words cut deep, but I saw the pain in his eyes. He wasn't fighting for dominance. He was fighting for love, just like me. I nodded, unable to speak, and left. That night, I couldn't draw. My hands shook, my mind a storm of doubt. Was I destroying Elliot's chance at happiness? Was I fighting for love or for a memory? I called Mia, sobbing, and she came over, holding me as I fell apart. "You can't control this," she said. "You've done everything you can. Now you have to let him choose." She was right, but it hurt like hell. I decided to give Elliot space, to stop pushing. I sent him one last sketch, a drawing of us saying goodbye, our hands touching one last time. I wrote, "I'll always love you. Be happy." Days passed without a reply. I threw myself into work, trying to fill the void. But every night, I checked my phone, hoping for a sign. Then, one evening, he called. "Caleb," he said, his voice shaky. "Can we meet? I need to see you." Elliot's call left me sleepless, my mind racing with possibilities. We agreed to meet at our old apartment, now empty since he'd moved in with Julian. I arrived first, the key still in my pocket from when I'd kept it, unable to let go. The place was bare, but echoes of our life lingered: the scuff on the wall from moving furniture, the window where we'd watched snow fall. Elliot walked in, his face pale, his hands fidgeting. "I haven't been here since the accident," he said, looking around. "But it feels familiar." I nodded, my throat tight. We lived here for 3 years. Built a life. He sat on the floor, his back against the wall, and I joined him. Your last sketch, he said, pulling it from his pocket. It broke me. Caleb. You saying goodbye. It felt wrong. My heart pounded. I thought it's what you needed. To move on. I don't know what I need, he said, his voice raw. But I know I can't stop thinking about you. Your sketches. Your stories theory in my dreams. I told Julian I needed time to figure this out. I stared at him. Hope and fear colliding. What does that mean? It means I'm confused, he said. I care about Julian. He's been my anchor. But you're something deeper. Like a part of me I can't reach. We talked for hours, sitting in that empty apartment, memories flooding back at least for me. I told him about the night we painted the walls, laughing until we were covered in paint. The time we burned dinner and ordered pizza instead. He listened, his eyes searching mine, like he was trying to find himself in my words. I want to remember, he said finally. I want to feel what you feel. Then let me help you, I said. We can start small. No pressure. He nodded, and for the first time, I felt like we were on the same side. We left the apartment together, the city alive around us. Over the next week, we met daily coffee shops, parks, places that held pieces of our past. I didn't push, just let him feel the moments. His smiles grew warmer, his touches lingering. But Julian wasn't gone. Elliot told me they were still talking, trying to navigate their relationship. I respected his honesty, but it hurt. I kept drawing, leaving sketches for him, each one a step closer to us. One night, he showed up at my apartment, his eyes wild. I remembered something, he said. A moment. We were in a park, and you were drawing me. I teased you about your sci-fi books. I froze, tears stinging my eyes. That was us, I whispered. That was real. He hugged me, his arms tight, and for the first time since the accident, I felt Himmy Elliot coming back. But as we pulled apart, he looked conflicted. I need to talk to Julian, he said. I owe him that. I nodded, my heart in my throat. Do what you need to do. He left, and I sat alone, staring at my sketchbook. I'd gotten a piece of him back, but the fight wasn't over. Julian was still there, and Elliot's heart was still divided. Days turned into weeks, and Elliot's memory came back in fragments, flashes of our life, sparked by my sketches or a familiar place. A laugh we'd shared, a song we'd danced to. Each moment was a victory, but it came with a cost. He was pulling away from Julian, and the guilt weighed on him. I met him one last time at the Brooklyn Bridge, where it all began. The city was quiet, the stars faint above the skyline. He looked at me, his eyes clear but heavy. I remember more now, he said. Not everything, but enough to know I loved you. Deeply. My heart soared, but I saw the pain in his face. What about Julian? I asked. I ended things with him, he said, his voice breaking. It wasn't fair to keep him in this. He deserves someone who can love him fully. I reached for his hand, and he let me take it. I'm so sorry, I said. I never wanted to hurt him. I know, he said. But I need to figure out who I am now. The man I was, he's still in here, but I'm different too. Can you love that man? I looked into his eyes, seeing the Elliot I'd always known and the new one he was becoming. I've loved you through everything, I said. I'll love you through this too. He smiled, a real smile, and pulled me close. We stood there, the city humming around us, and I felt the pieces of our life falling back into place. Not perfect, not whole, but enough. We started over. Slowly. Coffee dates. Walks. Sketches shared over late-night talks. His memories came back in waves. And with them, our love grew stronger, built on trust and patience. Julian moved on, finding happiness elsewhere, and I carried the weight of his kindness, knowing I'd never forget it. One night, months later, Elliot took me back to the Brooklyn Bridge. He pulled out a ring-me ring, the one he'd given me years ago. I don't remember proposing the first time, he said, his voice steady. But I want to do it now. Caleb, will you build a life with me? Tears streamed down my face as I nodded, slipping the ring on my finger. We kissed, the city lights shining around us, and I knew we'd made it through the dark. Love doesn't always win, but ours did not because it was perfect, but because it was real. We'd lost 5 years to an accident, but we gained something new, a love that could survive forgetting, a love that chose to remember,